And I would say that the first lesson is the importance of luck. A lot of what I would like to consider as my achievement is just plain old luck. I was lucky to be born in India, not Afghanistan. I was lucky to be born into the family I was. I was lucky to get a great education. I was lucky to have many good teachers along the way, a few good mentors who came at the right time and opened the right doors. I was lucky that we built some good teams, and therefore all the professional things that got accomplished happened. So luck, I think, is 70–80% of the game. Call it karma, destiny, or any other thing. And that's just a fact of life. But then it also comes to how well you play the hand you're dealt with. And I'd say there are 2 or 3 things that I genuinely believe. And the first is, each of us has to learn to walk our own path. We live in society, there are huge pressures and feedback around what is success and what is not. The media holds up a certain unhelpful model of what success looks like. But I'm no different. I'm sort of hugely influenced by all the feedback that we get. But I think I had the courage at certain important points in my life to make decisions that were authentic, right? And what are those? For instance, after graduating from Harvard Business School, the right thing to have done would be to go to McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, and I could have. But no, I was passionate about engineering. I loved the company I worked for. It was so nice to me. And so I went back. Okay? That was a good decision, in my opinion. I never regretted it. I was passionate about India. I wanted to look after aging parents. So in 1996, I came back. Okay? That was not an optimal decision. Almost, all my peers who stayed on and stayed at headquarters did better. It was probably not a smart, conventional decision to leave Microsoft 2 years ago. And certainly if I left it, to go do some other CEO gig. And I didn't. So I'm not saying these are right or wrong. You'll never know. The point is you've got to have your own definition of success and have the courage to make these kinds of decisions. And so it takes courage, but what it takes even more is tenacity. Every one of these decisions is full of risk, and the chances of failure are greater than the probability of success. So all the smart people and people who cared about me said, listen, Ravi, you shouldn't join Microsoft. Not because it isn't a good company, it's just not you. We're right. And so the chances of failure were quite high for quite a long time. What you do is work hard and tenaciously make it successful. Okay? And the same is true of all major decisions. And if you look at your own life, look at all the people you admire and respect, this kind of tenacity is a very central characteristic. And the last thing I would say that is important is people. Everything, people still ask me today, like Pankaj was saying, the switch you made is not a common switch. And people ask me, how the hell did you go from engines to software, and that too without knowing anything about IT? Well, it's a common thing, and that's about people, okay? And so I focused a lot on getting the right people on the team. I focused a lot on getting the right relationships with government and customers, and things worked out. So when I look at all that good things that happened to me in my life, 109 or at least 99% is because of the people in my life, my parents, certain important mentors, the teams around me, and so forth. So I think anytime we take a people-centered approach to our life, things work out fairly well. So much for the takeaways. The real issue today, I think, for all of us is, how do you make that mid-career shift? And I must admit, the shifts I made early in life were much easier. I think I've often thought, why was it easier? Part of it is because, as Steve Jobs said, when you're young, you tend to be foolish. And so I was a bit reckless, and we all were a bit reckless. Part of it is, when you're young, you go with the herd, right? Herd like going to IIMB Bangalore, you're lucky to get through the gates. Your herd like graduate, you get into a job, you work hard for all the right things, you start a family. One day you're 35, and you look around you and the herd has dispersed a bit. And now for the first time you're alone, and you have to make your own choices about what kind of a life you want to lead. It's not obvious looking left and right what you should do. Now you have to have your own definition of success, your own compass. And so the choices that happen after 35 become harder because it's really about answering the fundamental questions of life. It's no longer about this job or that job. It's about, hey, you know, what kind of a life do I want to live? Where am I going to find purpose? How much money is enough? What is success? If I won a lottery and never had to worry about money, what would I really do with my time? Who do I want to hang out with? Okay, so these are the fundamental questions. These are really tough questions. You know, philosophers have written books for thousands of years about these things, and yet each of us has to answer them. And it's not easy because you've got this fog. At least I had this fog of, you know, conditioning, of fears and anxieties, and confusion, right? So there's this. All of us have this inner voice that says, "You're mad. You're wrong. If you do that, you're going to fail." And then nobody's going to look at you. All your friends are going to abandon you. Your family is going to, you know, think of you as a laughing stock. You won't be able to make your EMIs. So that inner voice just discourages you and, you know, really amplifies the fear of failure. You yourself are confused. For instance, hey, maybe I should join an NGO. Oh, sure. No. Let me try my hand at teaching. Forget that. Let me take a year off and travel the world. And all of these sound equally attractive and plausible, okay? So what I learned is that you cannot think your way to the answer. You can't sit in a room and say, I'll think about this and make up my mind. And you can't even talk to your friends and family and come to the answer. That's because the mind is too weak an instrument and also too unreliable and fickle an instrument. You need something more powerful to make these choices. And that tool is your own emotion, your heart and your gut. They are a better guide to your choices than your mind, okay? And so in the ET series, I talked a lot about doing experiments to find your way. Let me give you an analogy. In entrepreneurship, in the field of entrepreneurship now, there's this big fad called lean startup or the lean movement, right? And it's very simple. No matter how sure you are of your product or business idea, you'll never know whether it's successful or not until you get it into the market. So the thing is, can you build a prototype of this? Can you build it cheaply on a shoestring, put it in the market, allow it to fail, quickly learn from failure, and correct those mistakes till you have success, and then you'll scale up success. You have to do almost the same thing for your career choices, right? So for instance, if you say, hey, I want to teach, maybe I want to teach. Well, you don't have to leave your day job in order to try your hand at it. You can, I'm sure places like IIM and other schools and colleges would be glad to have you come even for a weekend talk or a lecture or take a course or whatever. If you want to if you're thinking about an NGO, the social sector, you don't have to quit your job and, you know, do a high-stakes experiment. You could try volunteering on Saturdays. If you think you might want to start a business, hey, what if you look at your friend who's got a startup and get involved in helping him or her, and decide then if it's for you. So it is by doing these experiments and then analyzing your feelings that you realize, does this fit well for me? Am I going to be any good at it? Can I pay the bills if I go down this path? And so forth. So this idea of conducting experiments is a really, really very central one. Now, the important thing is to do all these experiments with a life jacket on. I emphasize the importance of life jacket. Because when you're 35, 45, 50, you can't afford to take high-stakes decisions, okay? Because you're also responsible not only for your life, for the EMIs and the family and the kids' education and so forth. So you have to proceed with caution. So you can't be sitting paralyzed, you can't be proceeding recklessly. So I use the metaphor of life jacket. I donned the life jacket. So what I did very quickly is I created this core of 3 boards and directorships. I had this book, and I had a couple of other things which accounted for a third of my time, and also made sure that I had enough current income that I didn't have to dip into my savings. Now I felt secure, okay? So each of us has to find a way to hold on to something even as you're going into deeper water. That's very, very key. So let me pause here because I want to also not make this one-way monologue that some folks talked about. I want to make this interactive. Now, I found that with, for a lot of people as you enter the 40s, a sense of mortality sets in. For the first time you begin to realize with discomfort that you have fewer good years ahead of you, more good years behind you. And then gradually the clock starts ticking louder and louder, okay? And that's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's a pretty good signal to wake up and realize you're not going to be around forever. And that means you need to start optimizing differently. When you're young, you optimize for achievement. As the clock grows louder, you need to optimize for the time that you have left. Carl Jung had a very nice way of saying it, which I'll never forget. He talks about sort of 3 stages of a person's life. He said, the first chapter of a man's life is when he sets out, or she sets out to conquer the world. The second chapter is when he realizes the world is not likely to be conquered by the likes of him. And the final chapter of a man's life, or of a person's life, is making peace with that. Most of us are sort of in that second stage and on the cusp of the third. And it's, life is very, very, not only finite, it's also very uncertain. So the advice I have is stop wasting time and reclaim and live your own. So let me pause here. I don't know how much time we have for questions. Maybe there are no questions at all. But I'm happy to take a few as long as Tony, I guess, will permit me. Oh, it's really embarrassing if there are no questions.
We open to questions now. The gentleman in the back there.
Thank you very much for your talk, and it was very enlightening for me and people like us. My challenge has been to deal with the people who are on the other side of the table. You are here talking about it, you are successful. I have met n number of other people who are in the same boat but haven't got their mark. And some of them have left the job, some of them don't have any other means. And I'm kind of constrained to how can we make them have some kind of social security net, or at least some kind of sport from our side, maybe motion sport, maybe a sport in terms of not just advice, but helping them, holding their hand, and do something, maybe to get them back to the job that they have left. And that's helping my challenge. I just wondered, can we do something about it together? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. As I said, luck is a huge factor. I've really sort of seen the importance of that. Many people have just lots of bad luck. The other thing is I've learned, don't do reckless experiments. Before you quit something, first put your toe in the water and test it and see if it's to your liking before you take the plunge. But I do see a huge crisis in our country and all over the world where people in their 40s who had great jobs, they may have been in Yahoo and good places like that, and they take a little bit of risk, it doesn't work out, and suddenly, it's like musical chairs, the music stops and there's no place to sit. And it's kind of really surprising because, in today's day and age, the companies really, really, really need strong mid-level, if not senior people with a lot of experience. But there doesn't seem to be enough jobs going around for people, even with the excellent experience, credentials, and so forth in their 40s and 50s. So I see lots of people, and we need to find solutions. I don't have obvious ones, except that I would sort of steer more people towards becoming more entrepreneurial. That doesn't mean start a business, but learn to feed yourself. I consider myself an entrepreneur even though I'm not running a business. But I don't work for someone else. So I think that's the direction to take. We all need to figure out how to build that. I don't have obvious answers. You pointed out a great problem.
So, Ravi.
Yes. Hey, Priya, you need to have solutions, not ask questions.
Yeah.